Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is our Realtor Roadmap Agent Spotlight, and today I'm honored to introduce a very special guest, Aaron Olner with the Olner team at Realty One Group Sterling. Aaron is a man of Christ, a devoted husband, father, and proud grandfather of 5, and he faithfully served our country for 24 years. On top of that, he's been serving families in real estate for the past 14 years. In this interview, you're going to hear powerful insights on how to focus your day, how to run your real estate business like a true business, and most importantly, how to serve your clients with a heart for others, one family at a time. Grab a notebook, lean in, and get ready to be inspired by Aaron's wisdom and story in today's Realtor Roadmap Agent Spotlight. So you've been in the business for how long?
Since 2011. So,
Okay.
golly, what is that now? Almost 15 years.
Okay, so 15 years. Your team is you and your wife, right?
So, great question. Up until last year, 2025, it was just Rhonda and I. Because we've wanted to grow our business for a while, I just was having a hard time finding the right people. My daughter then decided she wanted to jump back in, my sister Lisa, and my sister-in-law Terry. So now we have there's 5 of us. Lisa really just helps us with logistical stuff and sometimes open houses. So really 4 of us actually actively in the business every day, and really only 3 of us producing because Rhonda, it's all she can do to keep the other 3 of us going in a straight line. So
So you're
3
saying
of
that
us
this is
active
a family
producers.
affair.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Which is good because I already know him, which is bad because I can't fire him. What do you do?
Right. You just hope that they're good.
That's
All
that's
right.
right.
So how did you originally get, so 2011 is when you started this thing. So how did you originally get started into real estate?
Right. It was really kind of an accident, Gary. I had went through at our church a Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University course. Was trying to get my debt snowball rolling so that we could get ourselves out of the hole that we were in. And I had referred at that time, I was about ready to go to work for the Target behind my house to start stocking shelves and stuff at night. Then I had referred my neighbor to my real estate agent, and he was picking up the sign that day, Troy Trum, you know Troy. He was picking the sign up, and I was pulling in to the drive, getting home from work, and I said, "What? No referral fee?" Just kind of poking at him. He said, "No, you got to be licensed for that." And I said, "Oh, so are you saying there's a chance?" And that's really how I got started. And then, of course, I met with you shortly after that
Right.
in my
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
dress blues.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think when I knew you, you were dressed in red. So, but that's all right. All
That's
right.
right.
So kind of just, so you got into real estate. Your background is military, right? You were in the military for how long?
24 years.
Okay, 24 years. Thank you so much for your service. I appreciate
Appreciate it. It was
that.
my pleasure.
And
Yeah.
do you think that that helped you prepare you for a career in real estate?
I do in the leadership aspect of it for sure, because you're taught leadership skills, especially once you work your way into the NCO ranks, non-commissioned officer, and then you're at that point you're leading people. And the military, it does a really good job at teaching people leadership. At least that was my experience. And so from that standpoint, yes. And my job was in an organization called Services. We did field service, fitness, recreation, lodging, and mortuary. I'm not sure how mortuary ends up getting combined with all of that, but it is. My specialty was food service, and I fell in love with it when I entered the career field. And so, and we're in the careers, the customer service business, right? The services, and so it just really kind of prepped me and got me excited and realized that I had a passion for just serving the needs of people. And so, in both aspects, I feel like the military really helped set me up for success.
Okay. So Troy Trum introduced you to the business,
Yep.
background in military, and your job that you were currently helped you and kind of prepared you for the service side of things. But
Right.
why did you say, I want to, other than getting that referral fee from Troy Trum? And by the way, did he ever pay you a referral fee for that? deal?
No, not for that
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that
You
sounds
knew
like
the
Troy.
answer to that.
Yeah, that sounds like Troy.
Yes.
But why did
Yeah.
you choose real estate? What was the biggest thing that said, you know what, I want to get into this business?
It was when I entered the services career field in the military, I came out of maintenance. I worked on airplanes initially. When I entered the unit there in Lincoln, Nebraska, they didn't have any positions. So the only thing they had open was services. So I really fell into that with the intention of working on airplanes again. And I fell in love with the people, and then I fell in love with the service organization. Same is true with real estate. Oddly enough, as I'm thinking about this here, I had one focus and one focus only. I wanted to get my debt snowball rolling so that I could get debt paid off. I'd have shoveled dog poop for other people if I could have made money back then in order to get my debt snowball rolling. But when presented with the opportunity to work with someone I knew and understanding that there was some money to be made there, I thought, well, let's do it. And the same happened after about a year of doing it. The first 6 months was not fun. Lots of calls, lots of no's, lots of hangups, some cussing at me. Not often, but once in a while, right? But in all seriousness, it was really an enjoyable journey to go through that 6 months, and then I started to enjoy it. And then I realized once I got my first sale, and I seen how much it helped, that person recognized how much of an asset I was through the process, and they thanked me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was awesome. So really after about a year and 2 or 3 sales, I was ready to roll. And I'm like, I can do this. Then my heart was in it. It wasn't just about my debt snowball. And from there, I've just fell in love with the business. And now I've got lots of people that I fall in love with all the time because I love what I do and I love people. So, and for me, that's the core of our business, is serving that person like you would want to be served, and just doing the right thing for them. And yeah, so there you go.
So you're saying that basically in the beginning of when you started this, you were saying the first 6 months, you worked the phones. You
Oh my
made
gosh,
cold
that's all I
calls.
did. At nighttime when I got home from work and on the weekends. I had this list of people that I was going through that were coming in through our lead generation systems and just calling and following up and following up and following up. I
That same
started back.
time, Aaron, at that same time, were you working your database at all, or were you just strictly making cold calls?
I had no database at all at that time. I was simply taking what was being provided to me by Troy, the database that he had of people that were not being communicated with. And he said, I think the term was, there's gold there in them there hills. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go digging. And that's what I did.
Good, good. So what would you say has been one of your biggest challenges in your career so far? And then how did you overcome it?
Uh, I would say the biggest challenge for me is consistently proper time management. And I'm still working on that each and every day because and the busier you get, the more challenging that gets, as you know, Gary, because everybody wants a piece of your time and you begin to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And I am a service minded person. I'm a yes person. I love to say yes. You betcha, I can do that for you. How can, and then I go to work for how do I make this happen? And that's always not the best answer. So I'm constantly learning to go, okay, can I really pull this off without having something else break? So to this day, it's just managing my time, protecting that lead generation time that I still have, which for me is touching my database. And then after that, handling everything else that needs to be handled.
And what kind of a system do you use for time management?
So I've read the book Ninja Selling, so I would consider myself a ninja. Been to several installations. And so my system is, well, I use my Google Calendar and I block time in the morning for what we call live flow. And that's where you communicate with your database. You make calls to the people that you've already done business with, and you find out, basically, you're just touching base, finding out how can I help you? We're not asking about real estate. We're not asking for business. We're just asking what's going on in your life? How's the family doing? Right? Ford, FORD, family, occupation, reparation, dream. And just continuing that relationship. And from that, we always get business. It's not necessarily that day, but we're staying top of mind with them. But more importantly, we're treating them like people, and they recognize that they're heard and that we haven't forgotten about them. What is it, like 87% of buyers never hear from their buyer's agent again. That to me is a travesty and a failure on our part as the industry as a whole.
Okay, so you make that phone call, how many hours a week are you saying that you're doing that you would do this? Is it an hour a day,
The,
two
the
hours a
goal
day?
is the goal for live flow is 2 hours a day. That's the goal.
Okay.
And I never go for 2 hours straight. I usually do 30 minutes and then I get up and take a break. Then I go for 30 minutes and I find that I just have to get up because I can't sit still for that long. And so that's kind of that flow. And then I also write handwritten notes for people. So that's a part of that live flow time. So I usually squeeze that in between my calls. But yeah, and sometimes it goes longer and sometimes I have to cut it short. But on average, man, if we can just protect that 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours of time per day, I find that when I do that, it's always more rewarding than me flying off the handle and doing all the other stuff that inspections and issues with, title companies and whatnot. That can all be handled afterwards, but I have to protect that time in the morning. Otherwise, it
Okay,
doesn't happen.
so that kind of leads me into systems, habits, and breakthroughs. And
Yep.
so, obviously, just stated one of your daily habits and your systems and your routines is to do the 2 hours
Yes.
of reaching out to your database,
Yep.
sending thank you notes. Is there anything else that you try and do on a daily basis
Yep.
for your business?
Yeah, I sure do. I'm going to grab it here. This is what we call the Ninja Nine. You
Okay.
can Google it and find it online. And there's really 5 things that we're going to do daily, and uh, the rest of them, the other 4, are going to be weekly. So gratitude, start the day with gratitudes and affirmations. It's hard to wake up grumpy when you start the day with, a thank you and being grateful, being alive. I always tell people, man, as long as I can go from horizontal to vertical, man, it's a great way to start the day today, right? So gratitudes and affirmations, make sure to write down what is it that you want. Um, what we focus on expands, right? And so if as long as we can stay focused on where we're going, it's really hard to focus on the negative when you're staying focused on the positive. And if you don't start the day with that, I mean, goodness knows where you end up. I've ended up, realizing halfway through the day, it's like, oh no, that's why I'm grumpy. I really didn't have my gratitude and affirmation time. Showing up and staying on schedule. So the time block that you have, actually following it and not just swiping to the left. Man, that's easy to do. And we will train ourselves. What I've learned about myself is that if I get into the habit of swiping, before I know it, it's just a habit. And I don't even realize it. And I've swiped something off my schedule that I absolutely needed to do was important. So if I'm going to put it on my calendar, I will remove things that are important, but not the most important, because I don't want to get into the habit of swiping. I'd rather not even have them on there or at that time than swipe and train myself to do that. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that I end up having to go through. And then of course, writing our 2 personal notes, that's pretty important because I don't know, Gary, when's the last time you got a handwritten note?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's yeah, for sure. And I've got several partners that send them to me pretty regularly, and it's always a joy. I read them every time. And so knowing that about how it makes me feel, it makes me want to be all that more intentional to make sure that I can do my personal notes as well. And then we have review the warm and hot list. Basically, you can have this on a spreadsheet. We use a database to do it, but it's people that have indicated they're going to buy within the next 90 days or people that are farther out, right? And so hot list being one and warm list being another. And we focus on people are on a warm list that don't even know they're on a warm list. If we see that someone's had a baby or someone is getting married, those are people that automatically go on our warm list because we know that there's going to be a real estate transaction there sometime at some point. And so my job is to connect with them to make sure I'm front and center when they get ready to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really
Well,
good.
that's what we're trying.
That is
I
awesome.
ain't perfect, man. I got a long way to go.
You're you're more perfect than most that I've talked to.
I
So
appreciate that.
when you looked at that, so you had your first 6 months, and it sounded to me like when you were talking that you were probably still working a full-time job when you got into real estate, and you kind
Yeah,
of made your calls at night and on the weekends.
I did.
Where was the turning point or breakthrough moment where your business started to click and it started to take off and you started to see some consistency in scheduling appointments, going on appointments, and
Yep.
then eventually closing deals?
That took me about 3 years. In 2014, I realized I had enough, and I was still working full time in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then I only had 3 weekends a month because I had guard drill, another week, one of those weekends. And so I got to the point where I was so busy I couldn't serve everybody, continue to serve everybody, and be available for them when to the degree that I needed to because I just had too much going on. And so Rhonda, my wife at that time, she worked for Johnson Brothers Finnecaro. She was their operations manager, did all state compliance, shipping, accounting, all of that stuff. She was pretty much ready to be done with that industry, and not just that industry. I mean, that's a crazy industry, but like from October to December, you can't take any time off in that industry. For good reason. That's their busiest time of year. And so she was just ready to be done with that. So we made the decision at that point for her to leave that job, which was a pretty big leap because she made pretty decent money at that job, and service our clients full time because I couldn't. My enlistment went through 2016, and you just don't end your enlistment when you've made a commitment like that. So she went full time in 16 in 2015, and at the end of 16 I went full time. But things began to click go back to your question, which was 2014 is when things really started to pop, and we realized, okay, we've got a viable business here. Now we were comfortable with her giving up a guaranteed income for our business.
And so that
And
was about 3 years in.
yeah,
Okay. And then
yeah.
what were you kind of in that first 3 years? What would you say you would do transaction wise? What were you
So we
closing?
paid, I'll give you an idea. It was when I started the debt-free journey, our debt snowball, we realized how much debt we were in. We had $130,000 of consumer debt. That was credit cards, that was home equity lines of credit, that was cars. And then we owned 130,000 on our house. Ooh, what I wouldn't give to have $130,000 house payment. Right? Well, that's what we paid for the thing. And just about. So that's what we had. So in those 4 years at the end of 2014, um, we and our first transaction wasn't until September. We closed in October of 11. So in that 3 years and 1 month, or 1 quarter, 3 years and three months, we paid off we paid off all of our consumer debt, all of it. So divide that up by the year. What is that? An average of $40,000 a year, give or take. So that's kind of where we ended up. And I thought for part time that was a pretty good deal. I thought I was doing
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? The nice thing about what I see is when you were making that decision to get into real estate, is at the same time you had an awareness that you had a spending problem, right?
Yes.
That you had a
Yeah.
debt problem that you wanted to get taken care of, which
Absolutely.
those two things kind of collided at the same time,
Yep.
and
That's
which
a good
really
point.
helped. So
Mhm.
every dollar you made in real estate, my guess is that it went towards paying off debt.
All of it. All of it.
After you
Yep.
had whatever expenses in the real
Right.
estate business. So
Yep.
which is a great deal because there's a lot of people that get into this business that aren't on that path, and that money just goes out the door, right?
Right.
And so having that awareness, it just helped you just build and build and build and build and build. And that's the kind of the one thing that I always tell agents, that this is not a get
Mhm.
rich quick business. This is a business that if you're going to be in it, it needs to be consistent and it needs to be over time, right? And
$100%.
I've been introduced to agents that, let's say, I closed 50 transactions my first year in real estate. And then the next 5 years, you don't hear from them anymore, right?
Right.
Because they can't duplicate what they did. And
Right.
it was too much too fast. But all
Right.
right, so let's jump into some balance, right?
Sure.
So real estate obviously is a demanding business, and the more business that you do, typically, what they say, it gets easier, right? No, but so how do you balance your family and your personal life?
So,
Because
so that's
tell
so
me, what
funny.
is the dynamic of your family? How many kids do you have?
So great question. I actually have no kids at home. It's just Rhonda and I. We're empty nesters. We have 5 grandkids now. My one son and his wife just adopted our first adopted grandchild. So we're just super stoked and we're living that life. Prior to that, yeah, it was pretty interesting when the kids were home. It was a matter of we had certain times that we always ate together. Phones were never at the table. That was sacred time. We always went down to bed together. In other words, I got the kids in bed. Everybody said we love each other and gave each other hugs. We're a huggy family, and so that's what we did. But in between those times, the kids knew, hey guys, here's what we're doing. And here's the deal. We told them when this debt's gone, we're going to Disneyland. And so in 2015, we took the kids to Disneyland. I took my largest, it was a $330,000 house that we sold over in Pacific Hills Golf Course. I took that entire commission because everything was already paid off. We paid the last debt off and we took the kids to Disney World. I was still pretty tight with the food because I don't like eating out. Wish I would have changed that. but but that's what we did. So everybody was we all had a goal. And I think that's one of the things that us guys want to do is just out of the way, let's move and let's get the goal done. The problem is that if everybody isn't bought in, and if everybody doesn't have the same mindset and you don't have a soul-minded purpose, what you can run into friction with people that don't want to do things that need to be done because they don't share the same vision. So it's really important, especially for husbands and wives, that you're on the same team if you are working, the business together like Rhonda and I, and maybe even more so if you're not, because they might not have a full understanding of what you have going on. So really having a defined goal and a dream and a set point of where you're wanting to end up with this is important. So that's what we did.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So what's the one piece of advice that you'd give a brand new real estate agent?
Man, there's so much advice I would
So
give.
if you're looking at your new self, 2011, and
Yep.
now we're at 2025, so we're
Yep.
14 years in. So what's one piece of advice you'd give new Aaron Ulner?
I would say never take any deal for granted. And what I mean by that is I've lost some deals because I thought we had a relationship where we're in a place that we weren't with the relationship and we lost the deal. So I think our business, Gary, as you know, is as much about reading people as it is reading the market, right? It's important to read the market, but we have to understand our people. And more importantly, we have to know what's important to them. And then that's what we need to drive towards. So for me, it would be listen more and talk less, understand more, seek to understand first. Um, and then with that information, you can make better statements and give them better direction that will protect the relationship. And obviously, if the relationship is protected, so will your income. It's always got to start with the relationship. The income will follow. That's what I think so many people will get misaligned is they'll start focusing on the income and the money and the this and the that, all the things that go along with it. And they'll lose sight of the most important thing, which is, hey, we're in a service-oriented business. What service are we offering and how well are we providing that service? So if we get that piece, everything else will follow suit. Dave Ramsey has said, if you've listened to any of his stuff, he says you can't out earn stupid. And so you mentioned it. Those of us who go out and sometimes people will think they have to look a certain way, drive a certain vehicle, and all of that stuff is near meaningless if you don't have the relationship. So really, it's setting yourself a budget, setting yourself money aside to pay taxes, because that'll bite you faster than anything else. Put yourself some money in savings, and the rest is for you to spend. If we all did that a little easier, it would take pressure off us feeling like we needed that commission. I mean, I have an emergency fund, or what we call a Hill and Valley account for our business, because some months we have huge incomes and others we don't. So I don't feel like I have to make that commission. It's like, oh, we're good. We've got the money over here. I got a 6-month reserve over here. So if something doesn't, if we have a couple slow months or whatever, or we're not meeting our goals, no problem. I don't feel pressured to make decisions or do things that might that would be contrary to my integrity. So I just want to keep myself away from all of that completely. I never want to go back. How's that? Where I was, always struggling for, living paycheck to paycheck.
Which kind of leads me into my next question is, have you ever gotten off track in your business in the 14 years you've been doing this? And if you did, what did you do, if you can remember, to get back on track?
So, I don't know. Yeah, all the time. It's like, man, I've been 2 days here. I haven't finished my 2 hours, or maybe I didn't do them at all. What's happening to me? And so, yes, you're going to have points where stuff will just happen. Things come up, urgent things happen. Some of them will become urgent and important, right? And we'll need to address them. I think the key is always coming back to my center. My center is my checklist. I get a dopamine hit every time I can put a check mark on my, yes, I've done this routine. I've done that part of my routine. I've contacted and, I've had live flow conversations with people. So for me, it's going back to my checklist. Go, okay, where did I fail? What did I not accomplish here? And being honest with yourself. I think so many of us sometimes want to be hard on ourselves when we fail. Sometimes we should, because it's a failure because of a lack of discipline. But some of it is just a failure because we get so busy sometimes that we allow ourselves to be pulled in different directions, or sometimes we just have to address issues that are urgent and important at that moment. And
Right.
so giving yourself some grace, and also getting back to the disciplinary, for me, this is discipline. I tell people all of my discipline when it comes to food happens at the grocery store. Once it's in my pantry, all bets are off. Okay. And so my checklist is that same way. That is my discipline. And as long as I stay on track with that, and at the end of the day, Gary, when I can look at that and I say, man, you know what? I did 75% of it. That's better than half. Awesome. And here's my room for improvement. What can I do to do better? So it's really kind of a gauge for me to help me stay on track. So I don't know. Does that answer the
Yes,
question?
it does. One of the things that I coach is creating the perfect week, right? Well,
Yeah.
we never have the perfect week. So I don't know if that is that an
No, right.
oxymoron? I don't know. But you create the perfect week, right? You
Yeah.
create exactly how, if you did have the perfect week, this is when you would make phone calls. This is when you would spend time with your family. This is,
Right.
this is when you would, work on this project or whatever the case may be, when you'd go on your appointments or whatever. Because I
Right.
get so many real estate agents that will come to me. They never come to me and say, man, I need a coach because life is going really good right now and my business is just skyrocketing, right?
Yeah.
It's always, God, I just need to get back on track. It could have been that
Yeah.
they got sick, or one of the kids got sick, or
Yeah.
they had to go out of town, or they went out of town, right? It was, the summer is over. Now they're trying to get back on track. And if you
Right.
just carve out what that, because to me, that piece of paper that the Ninja 9 that you were holding up, that's your perfect week.
It
That
is.
if you filled out every
Yeah.
one of those blanks, you had a perfect week. And my guess is there's probably never a week where you filled everything out perfectly.
Something has
But
always fallen off. Yeah.
right, but you never have to say, how do I get back on track? Because getting
Right.
back on track is just looking at that. That's your discipline, is looking at that piece of paper. So that's
Right. Right.
that I love these correlations, because
Yeah.
some of the things that I teach and some of the things that other companies teach and other training programs and what agents are using, they're really the same. They just have different names.
Right.
So,
There's
but
no
all right.
magic in this business. There's no magic at
Yes.
all. It's just a matter of discipline. I'll
Yep.
share something with you that's pretty raw for me still. But I lost my mom this April 1st, and I've never lost anybody close before, and I was really close to my mom. I'm one of 11, and we all had different relationships with her. And I will tell you, Gary, I could not do math for several days. Like, I would try to look at a sheet, a closing disclosure. I couldn't come up with the right numbers because my mind was just not mentally capable. Literally, I've never had that happen to me in my life, where I could not function. And it took me several weeks before I could actually sit down and go through my Ninja 9 and start doing it again. And I really had to allow myself some grace because of the trauma, right? Because my tendency was to beat myself up. So why can't I do this? And what's wrong with me? We tend to be our own worst critics, and yet to allow yourself that grace. But I think you've got to realize when life happens and stuff happens, and you've got to process it, and then you just sit back down. And for me, it was okay. Let me sit back down. Let me look at my checklist and where can I start? You have to have something that you can look at and go, where do I need to, because we get lost in our emotions. We get lost in I've got this here and I got that here and I got this inspection here and I got a checklist for me anyway. If I didn't have that to always go back to and recenter, I would be toast. I would be lost all the time. So I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but it was through that, it was the checklist that I could look at every day and go, okay, what am I capable of doing today that will drive my business forward? So
Right.
there you go.
And it's in, you know what, in anybody's life, it's not a matter of if you're going to go through challenges, it's a
Yeah.
matter of when,
When.
right?
Yep.
And you
Yep.
don't really know how to, unless you've had those experiences. I mean, somebody like, I mean, your story, somebody's going to relate to your story of what you just
Yep.
losing a parent, but at the same time, you don't know it until you know it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just
Right
kind of
on.
one of
Yep.
those things. And I think
Right.
that's the evolving of this business, right? So
For sure.
kind of lead me into the next question, which is how do you stay current in this evolving real estate business?
Current. Love it. So I think that the way we stay current and relevant is just keeping our knowledge base up, right? Our market is constantly changing. So every month when the MLS brings the new stats out, looking at that, I'm subscribed to Dave Matney's YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube channel. He gives all that stuff. I love listening to his take on.
Dave
Yeah,
Matney.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Give a
Dave
shout
Matney.
out to
Yeah.
Dave Matney. He's done a good job with that channel.
He is, and I listen to his stuff, and the content is good. And so, so staying relevant in the market stuff, but also staying relevant mentally ourselves. What are we reading? How are we staying up? I listen to the KW a podcast every not every day, but at least several times a week. Okay, what's new? Who they got coming in? Just to keep getting fresh ideas and listening to people that are making it happen. When we begin when we lose touch with the market as a whole and we lose touch with what people are doing and the success people are having, sometimes we can get caught in our own bubble of a lack of success, right? Or a lack of activity. And so it's just always look for the people that you want to be like, that you want to have businesses like, and whether it's podcasts, whether it's books, staying relevant there. Keeping Current Matters is another great website. They're always putting out good content. We put some of that out on Facebook. They have seller books and buyer books. So we use some of that content. And but really it's just stay active in the business that you're in. Know what's happening, know what's changing, know what's new that's coming out. And I was sitting with the client today and we were trying this morning and we were trying to come up with a solution. And I had my sister-in-law, Terry, there with me. And between the three of us, the solution we came up with was one that I'm not smart enough to come up with on my own. I think we have to realize that we're not, we're not all there is to this business. This business is all of us together in what we're doing, and we don't all have the best ideas. So I think pulling from the best ideas. I mean, I'll throw out another team, the Meraki team, they have events throughout, usually 2-3 times a year, and I try to go to those because those guys, they're professionals, they know what they're doing, and I always take a nugget or two from the events that they're pulling off. So I think if we can just stay if we can be looking outside of ourselves and capturing as much information as we can, not that that's the only part of our business, because you can get stuck in the paralysis of analysis and that's all you ever do. You don't want to get in, if that's a danger, you got to be careful with that. But just watching other people and adjusting your systems to the current conditions, I think is probably one of the biggest things too. So
nice. All right. Well, so here's what I got. I have my last question, and then if you want to do closing thoughts, that would be awesome. But what kind of impact do you want your business to have on your clients and your community and probably more importantly, your family?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think anybody that knows me knows that I am a Bible believing Christian. I love Jesus Christ, and I want my life to be an example of him. Goodness knows I work on that every day, but I do want that first and foremost to be what I leave behind. And we do that in our business. I call my business my ministry. That's the other thing about the real estate thing. I can touch so many people. We can touch so many people this way. I mean, I pray with my clients when it's comfortable for them. And you can walk through their house and, if they've got different religious memorabilia in there, you can start asking questions, right? So where you can find out where people are at by having conversation. So we pray over contracts. We pray over homes. For me, that's the most important thing, bringing bringing Christ into our circle of influence. And then beyond that, representing him well, being his ambassador well by serving our clients well, putting their needs first. I can't tell you how many people that we've talked with whose experiences with realtors has been a negative one. In fact, when I was getting into this business, Gary, and I was telling my brother, hey, I think I'm going to become a realtor. I'm studying, I'm taking the courses. He looked at me and he said, dude, are you kidding me? They're no better than used car salesmen. And I don't know what that says about used car salesmen, but I said, well, what do you mean? And he just described to me his experience. And he said, all it seemed like they ever wanted was to close and to get paid. It never seemed like the questions and concerns that we had were of a concern for them. They just poo-pooed us. And so I said, then I guess it's going to be my job to change that, isn't it? And so that's kind of been my mantra from the very beginning. Put your client's interest above your own, care for people, treat them the way you want to be treated, and make sure that you're Jesus to the world around you, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your church, whether it's at the store. Dude, I went back and had to apologize to people because I've responded to them in a bad way, in a negative way, in a way that was less than charitable, in a way that was the little kid in me that was having a tantrum instead of the adult me that should have been more Christ-like. Right. And I guess just by being humble and realizing we make mistakes, when we make mistakes, let's own them and let's correct them. So anyway, all that to say, being a Christian first and foremost, the best that I can, and then sharing, being the best realtor that I know in our marketplace. So those are the two things that are most important to me.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on with me and being my first interview. I couldn't imagine, especially, we're shooting this video here. Well, this is my birthday week. So it's
Happy birthday.
September. What are we at? September
We're the
17th.
17th today.
Yeah. And this last 7 to 8 days have been, not the best in our country. And,
For sure. For
and
sure.
I'm going to tell you that I couldn't have had a better interview than with you. So I appreciate
I
you
appreciate
jumping on and sharing your story with me, because I think, the thing that I've really noticed from watching other YouTube videos and stuff like that, and where I've probably gotten the most engagement, and it really doesn't matter. It's personal stories. It's
For
how
sure.
did people handle this and what did they do on that? Sure, we want lead generation ideas. But for the most part, if somebody's at the point to where they're watching this video, if I asked them the question, what are 5 things that you could do today to improve your business? They could probably come up with 10, right? And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it comes with discipline. And I've always said this because I'm a Floyd Wickman guy, and he trained me a long time ago. And when I look at recruiting real estate agents, two of the best industries to recruit from where people are coming from a job, actually three, is stay-at-home moms, military, and school teachers.
Interesting. Okay.
And those are just, I mean, again, it's service. I mean, I came from the service industry, right? So I was in the
Yeah.
restaurant business.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, no matter what industry you're in, it's an 80-20 rule, right? I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that I had in my industry that
100%.
they were the furthest thing from wanting to service people, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously kind of weeding those people out. But you are a good nugget. And you are I mean, obviously, we're in competing markets here, but
Right.
I think there's only once. You were the only person, the only agent, when I would get up and I would train and I would teach classes, and I said, I would be sitting down with a client, and they said, you know what, we've got another agent that we're going to interview. And I'm like, you know what? How about I do this? I know Aaron. I can give Aaron a call and let him know. And I teach that in the class. And would you not believe it? The only time in my 28 years of being in this business, the only person that has ever called me to use my own technique on myself was you. Do you remember that? You called me up. And I think I
Oh
still
my gosh,
remember
that's
that house was
awesome.
over like on Military or something like that.
Yep.
It was in
Yep.
the north. Yeah, so that was
That's funny.
hilarious.
Well,
I just
whenever I get over into your area, I'm like, oh boy, I'm on hallowed ground over here.
Yeah. Yeah. When we see you come in and you do an open house and you got flags flying everywhere and signs going everywhere. And it's like,
Yeah. And you guys do the sip and sees, which I love. I'm like, I just got to figure out how to do that.
so this is a great interview. I always love connecting with you, Aaron. So